Hi y'all, I'm Genna. With this video, I'm going to be talking to you about my experience making Pearl Soho's Big Little Dandelion blanket with the suggested Knit One Slip One Extreme Knitting Wool by Jackie Fink. This video has been a long time coming. I actually got the materials for this project over a year ago and finished it 4 months ago, and I know some of my friends over on the Buns Knitting Zone have been waiting for this video for some time. Hi ladies, this video is mostly for you, so I hope you enjoy it, and for everybody out there, I hope that this video helps you in planning your next giant knitting project. So I was so excited to start this project. I have been wanting to do an extreme knitting or giant knitting project for about 3 years, and I'd been searching for the right project and also the right materials to do the project. I tend to work with natural fibers, namely animal fibers, namely wool, and when you're talking about a giant knitting project, the volume of material required to do so makes working with natural fibers cost prohibitive. So I toyed with the idea of buying some roving myself, felting it myself in order to reduce the cost associated with this project. But when I was planning this project, I was actually expecting my first child, and it just felt like too much. I thought, oh, life is too short. I'm not going to try to buy roving and felt it myself, and I really wasn't confident in my ability to produce a good result felting the fabric myself. So with all that in mind, you know, big knitting project, natural fibers, blah blah, all this in mind, I actually just decided to spend the extra dough and get some good quality fiber in order to do this project. And that's when I decided I was going to work with the Knit One Slip One Extreme Wool by Jackie Fink. I was discussing this project with my mother-in-law, who's actually my crafting spirit animal. I'll link her website below. She's actually a very talented fiber artist, so you can check her out later if you're interested. I was discussing this project with her, and since my 30th birthday was coming up, she offered to purchase the Knit One Slip One Extreme Knitting Wool for a very generous 30th birthday present. So that's how I ended up getting this wool. With that, my dad decided to get in on the gift too, and he actually crafted these knitting needles himself. So these are just like the ones that are available online. They're 50 millimeters in diameter, which is about 2 inches, and these ones are made out of black PVC piping because that's just what my dad had on hand. And these are hand-turned wooden tips connected with some Gorilla Glue and lots of sanding. So this project was really special to me. A bunch of members of my family came together to source the materials and help me with it, and I'm just so fortunate that I have a family that's very supportive of my crafting, or else, you know, this project wouldn't have been possible. So with this, I'm going to be talking to you about 4 aspects of this project: the wool, the needles, the pattern, and finishing. So first up is wool. I actually ordered a 5 kilogram bump of Knit One Slip One directly from Little Dandelion Studios, which is Jackie Fink's company out of Australia. But there was some kind of mix-up with the website. You know, it was posted and I paid for it and everything, but she got in touch with me shortly after and said, oops, you know, we don't actually have a 5 kilogram bump of that one in stock, but she did have 4 1.5 kilogram bumps, which she was willing to send me for the price of a 5 kilogram bump. I was a little bit hesitant about that because I just thought, I don't really want to deal with connecting the fiber together for this big blanket project. I really just wanted a continuous felted wool to work with. But she sent me some instructions on how to connect them together, and I thought it looked really good. And she's, you know, offering me an additional 1 kilogram of wool for the price of 5, so I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. Jackie also told me that the fiber gets compressed during shipping, so that when it arrived I should let it out of the box and let it kind of breathe and expand, and I really did find that to be true. I could see it grow as soon as I took it out of the packaging. And actually, when I was knitting with it, the interior of the bump was more compressed than the exterior, as can be expected. But I could see it expanding, you know, a few rows below where I'd already worked, which was pretty amazing. The one major challenge I had working with this yarn is that the inside of the bump was really a lot more compressed than the outside of the bump. So as you can imagine, a felted wool fiber kind of looks like round, it's spaghetti. But as it got to the interior of the bump and it was more compressed, it was kind of coming out like linguine, if that makes any sense. So what I was finding is, as I was working with the fiber, I was trying to take care not to twist it around the needle, and I probably, out of a sense of caution, like too much caution, because I really wanted to have a nice final result. So really it just took some extra time for making sure that it didn't twist, and then I would have to kind of unwind the ball as I was working with it, which just added to the difficulty of the project. I mean, that's really all I wanted to say about the wool. It was really high quality wool. Jackie was great. The shipping was to be expected, as it was coming directly from Australia, so it did take a while, maybe a month or so, to arrive after I ordered it. But really overall I was happy with my purchasing experience. I was happy with the quality of the wool and happy with the end result in the blanket. So now let's talk about the needles. If you're planning on having somebody make them for you, or you're going to make them yourself, my only recommendation would be to make sure that you get a hard wood for the tips and the caps. And when you connect them to the PVC piping, make sure that they have a solid connection and that they're well sanded. When you're working with a large, extreme knitting type wool or fiber, you're going usually to be working with something that's loosely spun or that's felted, and that just makes it a little bit more complicated when you're working with handmade needles, because what usually, if the sanding's not perfect or if the connection's not perfect, some of that felted fiber is going to get stuck in the needle, and there's nothing more frustrating than having little pieces of felt going everywhere when you're working. So that would be my recommendation about the needles. I read a lot of blog posts and a lot of other people's project notes before attempting this project, and everyone said working with big needles and working with big fibers is really physically demanding, and they were all right. I consider myself a fairly strong person, physically strong, but this was challenging. I could only really do it for about 20 minutes at a time before I was very tired, and my arms were sore. So everybody's right, working with these fibers and huge needles is physically demanding. It took me probably about 4 rows of fiddling around with the needles in different positions before I found a really comfortable position to knit in. As my piece got bigger and bigger, it got heavier and heavier, and it also got very hot to work under. So it is physically demanding. Just be prepared for that. Take lots of breaks, drink lots of water, and have fun. So now I'll talk about the pattern. I did follow Purl Soho's pattern. It's very basic. It's just a garter stitch blanket, so it's really not much of a pattern. But it doesn't recommend a cast on technique. So what I did was I used the knit on cast on technique. I didn't want the final project to be too stretchy on the end, so that's why I chose the knitted on method. Casting on, I found, was the hardest part of this project, but once I got flowing with it, it was very easy, and really the only thing that was difficult about it was that it was getting heavy and that it was hard to manipulate the needles as the project got heavier. Since I had 6 kilograms instead of the recommended 5, I ended up casting on a few more stitches. So the pattern says cast on 24. I cast it on 28 with hopes that my final project would be a little bit wider than the finished measurements on the Pearl Soho website. So they said their project was 46 by 70. Mine ended up being 50 by 63. To cast off, I used Elizabeth Zimmerman's sewn bind off. So really all that is you weave the end of your fiber through 2 stitches as if to knit, and then through the first stitch as if to purl and drop it off, and then you continue through 2 stitches as if to knit, and then back through your first one as if to purl and drop it off. So I recommend that to accompany the sewn on method because it gives a very similar look to the end of your piece, and it's not overly stretchy. So yeah, as you can see, this is really heavy, but basically this is my cast on edge with the knitted on technique. So you can see those chains chaining there, and then this is my cast off edge. Very similar appearance, looks ever so slightly looser, but you know, you can see the loops chaining together there. Okay, in terms of finishing, I followed Jackie's recommendation with using a fine cotton thread to finish my piece. I used Matler Silk Finish cotton in color 0331, and this was just the closest cotton yarn or cotton thread I could find to the putty colorway. And I also just used Jackie's technique for weaving in the ends. Basically, you just fiddle with the end of the wool until you find a place that's pleasing to sew it in. You trim it, and then you sew in using a cotton thread. What I did notice is it actually does make a slight indentation on the wool because you are using a cotton fiber, which is very strong, on a felted wool fiber, so you do see a slight indentation, but actually the overall finish is really quite flawless, and I can barely tell where it is in the overall piece. I can show you that too. So if you look here, this is an area where I connected 2 bumps together, and this would just be like a regular one. So it's actually very hard to tell overall where it was connected together unless you really know, what you're looking for. So that's been my experience with this project. I hope that you found the video useful. If you have any questions about the project or the materials that I used, please ask below in the comments, and I hope that you'll follow me on Ravelry and on Instagram for more of my knitting and DIY fun projects.